manufactured in various African countries, end to end, not just fill and finish. How did we get there? A special role in the getting together of today's announcement played two gentlemen, Werner Hoyer, President of the European Investment Bank, and Bill Gates, co-chair of the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation. Both EIB and the Gates Foundation have supported the company we will soon hear from way earlier than the general public became aware of them and of their small business in the beautiful German cathedral and university town, Mainz. Both Dr. Hoyer and Mr. Gates, through their organizations, have supported the company's early work in oncology, and the question can be asked whether the company would have had the financial muscle to shoulder the development of the COVID vaccine without President Hoyer and EIB stepping in very early in the pandemic. President von der Leyen, Excellencies Dr. Tedros, Dr. Nkengasong, Dr. Moeti, and Dr. Hoyer, dear Dr. Süßmann, it's now my privilege and honor to introduce Dr. Özlem Türeci and Dr. Ugur Sahin. Dr. Sahin and Dr. Türeci are physicians, immunologists, entrepreneurs. Physicians, as physicians, they are treating cancer patients. They realized that existing treatment options were often not sufficient. They thought there might be better ways to treat the life-threatening disease. Immunologists, their research and the research by other scientists encouraged them to start developing solutions to utilize the potential of the immune system to treat serious diseases. And visionaries and entrepreneurs, they founded the immunotherapy company BioNTech with the goal of reducing the suffering of people all around the world. Decades of research and development of the mRNA technology led to the first mRNA-based COVID vaccine based on BioNTech's proprietary technology. Dear Özlem, dear Ugur, you're interrupting your first vacation since the start of the pandemic to join us here today. This is very, very kind of you. The stage is yours.
Dear Holm, thank you for your kind introduction. You and your team's support in the past months and for having us today. And it is a pleasure for us to interrupt our pseudo vacation, actually. Dear Dr. Tedros, Dr. Nkengasong, President von der Leyen, dear Dr. Hoyer, Dr. Moeti, and Dr. Süßmann, we are more than grateful to be part of the joint efforts of the Eradicate Malaria initiative. Rest assured that we are well aware of the responsibility of this task. Our motivation is high. Malaria is a dire disease that affects more than 200 million people worldwide every year. The worst affected being young children who have no immunity against the pathogen. As a company founded by medical doctors, we are committed to reducing the suffering of people around the world. We are committed to bringing our innovations to those who need them most. Thus, malaria is an obvious next mission for us. Why now? Well, because the time is ripe. The response to the pandemic has shown that science and innovation can make a difference when stakeholders work together towards a common goal and with joint willpower. We are in a good starting position. Firstly, we can build on decades of malaria research, funded by international organizations, of which the most active ones support this initiative. Thus, our understanding of the biology of the malaria pathogen and how it evades the immune system's defense forces is continuously growing. Second, we have conceptual evidence that some malaria vaccines can protect at least for a couple of months, encouraging development of even more potent vaccines with durable protection also against infection. And third, there is enabling technology now. mRNA technology that after 20 years development has been validated as a robust vaccine platform by the baptism of fire of the COVID-19 pandemic. validated for efficacy, safety, feasibility of broad distribution, can be enlisted now. All this, we believe, will provide tailwind for our mission to eradicate malaria, to develop a prophylactic mRNA vaccine which is safe and efficacious, and to develop sustainable supply solutions to distribute it broadly. In front of us are grand tasks. They encompass identifying suitable vaccine antigen candidates, early stage studies in Europe for safety evaluation, followed by setup of large-scale clinical trial structures with the support of the Africa CDC and the WHO to conduct efficacy trials on the African continent, and lastly, setup of vaccine supply solutions that are sustainable and regionally compatible, so that if our vaccine would be approved and recommended, we could ensure sustainable supply. It may sound impossible to achieve this within a few years. However, as a great man once said, as Nelson Mandela said, it always seems impossible until it's done. We are committed to do together. Ugo, may I hand over?
Thank you, Ursula, and thank you everyone for the trust in us. Let me shortly repeat the goals of our malaria project. We want to develop a safe, well-tolerated and highly effective mRNA-based malaria vaccine with a durable protective immunity. That's our first goal. The second goal is, once approved, we want to ensure a sustainable supply of our mRNA vaccine from the African continent. So how do we want to accomplish this extremely ambitious goals? First, we need to get a deep understanding of the challenges and come up with strategies and ideas to overcome these challenges. Let me start with science. So what are the scientific challenges? Why it is so difficult to develop a successful malaria vaccine? We believe that the key challenge for malaria vaccine development is that the malaria parasite circumvents recognition by the immune system. After the mosquito bite, the malaria pathogen migrates from the skin to the liver and invades liver cells. In this early phase, the pathogen has established multiple mechanisms to remain invisible to the immune system. It multiplies in the liver and leaves the liver cells after about a week. Then it invades blood cells and starts to multiply in large numbers. This is the first time when the infection becomes symptomatic and the immune system starts to intervene. However, it is too late to stop the pathogen, to stop the disease. Our goal is to develop a vaccine which makes the malaria parasite visible and attackable by the immune system from the very beginning, when it is most vulnerable. We will not only test vaccines with previously known antigens, but we believe we can do a better job for vaccine design. We plan to discover new antigens which might be more suitable for vaccine development. We will engineer our mRNA vaccine in a way to induce strong and durable immune response, just as we did in the vaccines against coronavirus. We want to activate different layers of defense against this pathogen. Antibodies that neutralize the pathogen and inhibit uptake, CD4 T cells that can detect the pathogen invasion as early as possible, and CD8 T cells that precisely eliminate infected cells if the pathogen does manage to invade liver cells. For this objective, we will collaborate with world-class experts, such as Malaria Eradicate Foundation advisors, BMGF and EU-funded researchers, WHO and African Union CDC scientists, and many others. We had already productive meetings with various experts and are excited about ideas and collaboration opportunities. We want not only evaluate safety and immunogenicity, but also want to measure very early on protection in malaria challenge studies with human volunteers. So we plan for success from the very beginning. The second goal of our malaria project is to set up intelligence and sustainable mRNA manufacturing sites using modern digital technologies. This objective is part of our overall strategy to enable people around the world to manufacture our vaccines. The strategy incorporates transferring knowledge and technology. We started to evaluate options to set up end-to-end manufacturing capacities on the African continent, either on our own or with our partners. We plan to co-locate novel mRNA production sites with technology transfer hubs under development by WHO and in alignment with the African CDC. These manufacturing sites could in principle produce various types of mRNA vaccines. mRNA vaccines not only against malaria, but also against other different infectious diseases. We believe that this could allow long-term sustainable operation of the sites. So to repeat the how, science, collaboration of many stakeholders, and sustainable technology transfer are crucial for the success of this project. If we work together, we will enable that our innovations become available to those who need them most. And there are other challenges ahead. Durable success will require many other things, as regulatory alignment, supportive policies, building up an ecosystem that not only allows clinical testing and manufacturing, but also vaccines supply and pharmacovigilance. It requires coordination across organizations and nations and building the infrastructure to manufacture and distribute doses. We are committed to this effort, and I am grateful that this program has so many significant supporters. Thank you.
Thank you very much, dear Özlem. Thank you very much, dear Ugur. This gave a brilliant overview, and knowing a little bit now how BioNTech works, we already know that with this aspiration, you are probably going to achieve it, and this will one more time make this world a better place. Thank you very much for putting your ambition in the fight against this deadly disease that has really been neglected by so many pharmaceutical and vaccinology efforts over the last decades. It is my pleasure to hand over to President von der Leyen. President von der Leyen has been an important promoter of the EU initiatives on fighting malaria. And she is also, as some of you may not know, a medical doctor. President von der Leyen, please, the stage is yours.
Dear Dr. Tedros, dear President Hoyer, dear Dr. Özlem Türeci, dear Professor Uğur Şahin, distinguished guests. The history of science is made of long periods of slow progress, followed by great breakthroughs and scientific revolutions. Our fight against malaria is a case in point. For decades, science has worked hard to eradicate malaria, and the European Union is a proud partner in this work. We have supported tens of malaria research projects ranging from diagnostics to treatments, from prevention to vaccines. And in the last 20 years, the number of malaria victims was cut by more than half. And still, more than 400,000 people die of malaria every year. 2/3 of them are children under the age of 5. But finally, a breakthrough may be at hand. We are witnessing the start of a revolution in medical science, the revolution of messenger RNA. In these months, the whole world has seen the power of the mRNA technology, pioneered by BioNTech and others. And you, dear Özlem Türeci and Ursula Şahin, you have cut the time needed to develop a new vaccine from 10 years to 10 months. And thanks to this, billions of doses of a COVID-19 vaccine are being produced for Europe and the world. And the mRNA technology can be a game changer in the fight against other diseases too, including malaria. A safe and effective malaria vaccine has long been an elusive target, but this could change now. And this is where today's initiative comes into play. Today, we're joining forces towards a breakthrough in malaria vaccine development. The European Commission and the European Investment Bank are throwing their weight behind the global effort to develop mRNA vaccines against malaria. We will do so through our Infectious Diseases Finance Facility, and we will work together with BioNTech and with some of the main global health actors. Eradicating malaria is a realistic goal. And now we know that it can be achieved already in this generation. Indeed, the time is now. This initiative is part of a broader engagement by the European Union for Health in Africa and in the developing world. Africa today imports 99% of its vaccines. And our African partners want to end this dependency, and we want to support them achieve this goal. Last May, at the Global Health Summit in Rome, we announced a Team Europe initiative on manufacturing vaccines in Africa. This initiative is backed by 1 billion euros from the European budget and the European Investment Bank. And some European countries have announced that they will also join forces. Our very first goal is to bring new technologies to Africa. We're working together with pharmaceutical companies that successfully manufacture in Europe. If we join forces, mRNA vaccines can be produced inside the African continent. But to create sustainable structures, we need to look beyond COVID-19 vaccines. The new plans in Africa could be shifted to production of new vaccines against malaria or against tuberculosis. And of course, this is a project that takes years to be set up. But if we succeed, we will not only be better equipped for the next pandemic, we also invest into an African continent finally free from malaria. And I'm proud that Europe is part of this endeavor. Thank you all for being here and for your essential contribution to eradicate malaria.
Thank you very much, President von der Leyen, for these extremely supportive words of the European Commission. It's now an honor to turn over to Dr. Tedros. I trust the Director General of the World Health Organization has just landed well in Kuwait and might be ready to speak to us. Dr. Tedros, in case you can hear us, please unmute yourself. Probably not. So we will wait for you to become available.
Sorry, hi, good afternoon. This is Katerina. I'm just here to listen for Dr. Tedros. He has not yet.
Okay. Thanks, Katarina. Thanks a lot. And it's an honor to welcome you on that live stream. So this is now an even bigger honor to hand over to Dr. Moeti. Dr. Moeti is the WHO Regional Director for Africa. and she is indeed a passionate promoter for health equity in Africa and beyond. Chidi, please share with us your remarks.
Thanks very much, Holm, for that warm introduction. President van der Leyen, Dr. John Gengasong. I saw John is represented by our colleague, Dr. Nikes, Dr. Turechi and Sahin, Dr. Hoyer, Dr. Mark Sussman, our colleague and friend from the Gates Foundation. I saw my colleague, Dr. Sumia Swaminathan has joined, and Pedro Alonso, and all partners and colleagues. So I'd like to greet everyone who's joined us for this event today. It's with really huge excitement that I join you, distinguished participants, partners, and colleagues, for the announcement of this groundbreaking and truly revolutionary initiative on the development and production of an mRNA-based vaccine for malaria in Africa. I'd like to thank you all very much for your involvement in creating this truly transformative opportunity for moving towards malaria eradication in Africa. Between 2010 and 2019, more than $29 billion were invested in fighting malaria in the WHO African region, meaning mainly sub-Saharan Africa plus Algeria. And in the same period, nearly 4.5 million people lost their lives to this preventable and treatable disease. Each year, families and communities deal with the heartbreak and the outrage really, of seeing almost 300,000 children die of malaria. I'm convinced that our collective actions after this event will contribute hugely to stopping those tragic outcomes, as well as stopping the loss to African economies of 1.3% of annual growth. Since the Abuja Declaration on rollback malaria in Africa 2 decades ago, we have kept alive the dream of a malaria-free Africa. We have dreamed of having a vaccine that could prevent malaria in at least 75% of people who receive it, especially children. We're happy to see several malaria vaccines at several stages of development. And in October, the RTSS vaccine will be subjected to rigorous evaluation for possible policy recommendation by WHO experts after having been piloted involving hundreds of thousands of children in 3 countries in the African region. So that was an important step that's giving us a lot of hope. But as it's already been said, it would be wonderful to have a vaccine with a stronger platform, more effectiveness, more efficiency. And here we are today with BioNTech to announce a project on the deployment of mRNA technology to develop and produce a malaria vaccine in Africa. I'd like to thank our 2 scientists from BioNTech for your passion. I've followed your work and your statements as you have worked on the COVID-19 vaccine. Thank you very much for agreeing to avail this, and thank you, Holm, for your work, and the European Commission for supporting this work, for making this opportunity for malaria. So starting by supporting vaccine production for COVID-19, accelerating progress towards another dream of producing vaccines and other essential tools to address other health priorities on the continent, putting Africa and Africans in the driving seat, as African politicians have very strongly not only stated, but acted to turn into a reality in the context of the COVID-19 pandemic. I thank you all for coming together to put your resources, your scientific knowledge, and your will to act together in order to make this progress for African people, African children, the African continent. We at the WHO Regional Office for Africa, working with our colleagues in Geneva, will work with this initiative and partnership with the expectation of rewriting the ancient history of malaria and its related deaths in Africa. We stand ready to mobilize member states to support the entire spectrum of R&D of malaria mRNA vaccine, including the early engagement and support of national regulatory authorities for the role that they need to play. As always, we'll support the process of country policy adoption if and when a recommended mRNA malaria vaccine is available. And I am very hopeful that through your work, through this collective effort, it will be available. We'll also provide management and logistical capacity building to countries as they prepare for the deployment to ensure universal health coverage with available malaria tools, including the malaria mRNA vaccine in the future, which I'm very hopeful and even confident will be developed through our collective efforts. So I'd like to thank you all very much once again for joining us for this important event. I wish us all fruitful discussions and look very much forward to working with you on this urgent, transformative, and life-saving effort. Thank you very much for your attention. And Holm, I hand over back to you.
Thank you very much, dear Dr. Moeti. The big work is still ahead of us, and we'll have a lot to do together with WHO AFRO when this vaccine will start hitting the road and before, as it goes through the clinic with hopefully EDCTP's strong support in the African region. It is my pleasure now to welcome Dr. John Nkengasong. Dr. John is the director of the Africa Centers for Disease Control, who has just launched the Partnership for African Vaccine Manufacturing. This will ensure that the enabling factors, such as a regulatory environment and policy transfer, as well as country coordination, are in place to get the vaccines from factories into the arms of African citizens and beyond. And what we do here today, we consider it as a part of the Partnership for African Vaccine Manufacturing. Dr. John, it will be a pleasure. Please share your remarks with the group. Now we lack Dr. John. He has been there before. He's with the government of Tanzania in the moment. So since we anyway are flexible here, and I am seeing that Dr. Hoyer is already buttoned up and looks forward to speaking, I would like to hand over to the president of the European Investment Bank. EIB is actually the largest multilateral bank in the world by balance sheet size. Not many people know this. And wherever in the world we are traveling, in Africa and beyond, you find an extremely buttoned up and well-organized EIB organization that is very impactful in its proceedings. Without EIB, the malaria programs of the European Commission wouldn't have been executed in the way they are, and we won't have the project we are speaking about today. Dr. Hoyer, the stage is yours.
Thank you so much for these very, very kind words. Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, it's a real pleasure and honor for me to be here with you today at an event that could potentially mark an historical turning point in the long journey of humanity to fight malaria. It still constitutes a major health threat today, and as it has for millennia. It still takes too many lives each year, in particular those of children. The current pandemic should serve as a reminder that global cooperation and investment in innovation are key in the fight against other infectious diseases. As a multilateral institution, it is the duty of the European Investment Bank to be active part of global response. I have somebody knocking on my ears.
Yeah, Dr. Hoyer, give the technicians in Geneva 1 second and accept our apologies.
No problem.
Yeah, this probably has to do with the hiccup we had a moment ago. Can I get a go from Chris? Yes, okay. Dr. Hoyer, sorry for interrupting you.
Oh, thank you very much. So I just wanted to say that the current pandemic should serve as a reminder that global cooperation and investment in innovation are key in the fight against other infectious diseases. As a multilateral institution, it is our duty to be an active part of a coordinated global response. And this is why we seek to cooperate very closely with our colleagues from the European Commission, WHO, the UN, and the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation This is also why we aim to tap into and enhance the innovation potential of private companies. In the current crisis, biotech companies are and will continue to be the heroes. They manage to accelerate vaccine development and production across the world at an incredible speed. The scientific achievements of the recent months have been truly mind-boggling, and we are in your debt, Dr. Saina, Dr. Turecci, and all the BioNTech team. The current pandemic also shows us that we need to better prepare for future outbreaks. As a contribution to this, we at the EU Bank, in partnership with the European Commission, have adopted tailored approaches to meet pressing needs in the health sector. Indeed, over the past years, the EIB has supported activities in the health sector, both in Africa and in other continents, in particular in Africa and of course in Europe anyway. Since 2015, a close to 2 billion euros combined support has targeted 70 biotech and medtech projects in various areas of life sciences, ranging from new drug discovery for rare diseases, treatments in immuno-oncology, the development of more accurate surgical implants, or more sophisticated diagnostic tools. More recently, we also invested in the upscaling of manufacturing capacities and in technology transfers in Europe, as well as in developing countries. One specific area of focus is infectious diseases. Even beyond COVID-19, they affect millions of people across the world, most vulnerable living in low-income countries. So to support innovative solutions, the EIB and the European Commission have developed infectious diseases finance facility. This facility was set up in 2014 in the middle of the Ebola crisis. We needed an instrument that could mobilize funding for a sector that struggles to attract sufficient financial support despite the huge societal impact. Since its inception, this facility has supported more than 20 impactful and innovative projects with a total financing of more than €500 million. With these resources, companies have been developing vaccines, treatments, and diagnostic solutions against various diseases, including malaria, through the EU Malaria Fund. It is thanks to the combination of the IDFF under Innofin and the European Fund for Strategic Investments that the EIB was able to support BioNTech's vaccine development and manufacturing in 2020. As was said before, as an anecdote, as the EIB and BioNTech have already worked together in 2018 and 19 in relation to mRNA-based cancer treatments, both teams were in a very good position to quickly enter into discussions on COVID-19 from the very start of 2020, when the virus was still mainly limited to China. And this saved precious time. I'm proud that BioNTech trusted us, I'm proud that they could count on us and on our incredible life science team here in Luxembourg at this critical time. As we speak, EIB teams are focusing their attention on vaccine production facilities, active pharmaceutical ingredients production, and fill and finish capacities globally. Besides these direct efforts in R&D and production capacity upscaling, the European Commission and the EIB have ensured support to COVAX, aiming at fair and equitable access to COVID-19 vaccines worldwide and direct support to countries for vaccine acquisition. Ladies and gentlemen, excellencies, the main ingredients for good pandemic preparedness are adequate production infrastructures, free circulation of essential goods, and qualified personnel. Keeping these lessons in mind, I'm proud to announce the EIB's full support to the scientific and business communities, in particular to BioNTech, of course, in tackling one of the most widespread and deadly infectious diseases affecting developing countries, malaria. mRNA technology, developed by our BioNTech specialists, has shown itself to be a game changer in the fight against COVID-19. The EU Bank will continue to focus on overcoming long-standing threats to public health and to support initiatives like the one proposed by BioNTech today. If mRNA can revolutionize the malaria vaccine technologies, we stand ready to provide the necessary support for its development and subsequently for its production on the African continent. Thank you very much for your attention.
Thank you very much, Dr. Heuer. So since we are now already trying to track down two distinguished participants, some were one in in Kuwait and one in Tanzania. Let me bridge by saying that with the advancement of the BioNTech malaria vaccine candidate on this proven technology platform, the EU Malaria Fund, which has been a cooperation between EIB and the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation and others, has successfully accomplished its mission earlier than expected. Therefore, on June 30 this year, its investment period has ended. With final disbursements occurring until September 30th, the fund has successfully initiated more than 2 dozens of novel scientific approaches to the fight against malaria, like the project we are talking about today, and financed many innovative companies under this scheme. Moving on is really closing a circle and going all the way to Seattle. Mark Sussman, Dr. Mark Sussman is the CEO of the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation, who has been a restless warrior in the fight of malaria for many decades. Mark, please be so kind to take the stage.
Great. Well, thank you, Holm, and thank you to all the partners here today. It's actually an amazing moment to see how many different partners we have that we've been working together for so long, from the European Investment Bank to the European Commission, of course, AFRO, the Africa CDC, the WHO, and BioNTech, all coming together around this new shared goal and commitment around the potential for an mRNA vaccine for malaria that can also be manufactured and scaled up in Africa. And I think this really is a historic moment. We may look back at this moment and see it as a transformative pivot point in the fight against malaria. At the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation, we've obviously been deeply involved for many, many years in this, and it's wonderful to be able to be at an event where people are talking openly about the possibility of eradication of malaria. This is an issue that has been debated furiously about whether it is the right word to use, the right term to use, the right context. We've always been very cautious about explaining what we mean, but our ambition has been eradication, but it's been underpinned by a view and a need that what we need are transformative tools in therapeutics, in diagnostics, in new forms of bed nets, and absolutely a different kind of more effective vaccine. Those are the things that we will need if we are going to meet that ambitious goal in the decades to come. And now with the promise and prospect of mRNA, which we've seen operate so successfully in the fight against COVID, and which we've already been partnering with BioNTech to think about its potential for HIV and tuberculosis, we can see the real possibility of that lying ahead. And so you can be assured of our continued strong commitment to work in partnership with everyone on this event, with the European Commission, with BioNTech, with the EIB, with the WHO, with the Africa CDC, both on the mRNA vaccine potential and in the wider efforts to continue to tackle malaria. But more broadly, I also wanted to say a couple of words about the importance of developing that kind of manufacturing capacity in Africa, because we've seen it in the historic announcement last week that BioNTech made in partnership with BioVac and others in South Africa around a potential mRNA vaccine production for COVID. And we know and we've seen the challenges that we've had, that Africa does need stronger self-sufficiency in vaccine manufacturing. And Dr. Moeti and Dr. Nkenasong and others have been pioneering strong voices and leaders around that. At the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation, we have spent many, many years trying to invest in supporting the developing country vaccine manufacturing capacity. We've worked across India, Indonesia, South Africa, Senegal, Bangladesh, and it's given us both I think, strong expertise and understanding that this is absolutely possible and necessary, but also that we need to think through the entire ecosystem of thinking about demand generation, about the importance of the capital provision, about the strong regulatory framework we need to put in place. And we will need all of these coming together around this current initiative in order to make sure that it is successful. And again, I think you can count on our commitment on this, both as a malaria platform, but also hopefully as a platform that shows the potential for acting together against other deadly diseases like TB and HIV for Africa and beyond. So in conclusion, let me again just thank all the other participants for today's event, reassert the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation's full support and commitment to today's historic announcement and to all the work that will be need to go on at the country level, at the company level, on the scientific side, on the regulatory side going forward. And with thanks home to you for putting together today's event and pulling together such a distinguished group of participants that we hope we can indeed look back at today and say we were part of a historical turning point in the fight against malaria, one of the oldest and greatest scourges against humanity. So thank you.
Thank you very much, Mark. It is now an honor to hand over to the Director General of the World Health Organization, who has a frenzied travel schedule these days. And we truly appreciate that Dr. Tedros is taking the time to share his thoughts on today's announcement by BioNTech and the larger malaria and development community with us. Dr. Tedros, the stage is yours.
Mr. Holm Keller, Professor Sahin and Turuse, dear colleagues and friends, good afternoon. I'm sorry I can't join you live today for this very exciting announcement. As many of you know, malaria is a topic very close to my heart. I started my career as a malaria researcher, and I wrote my PhD thesis on the effect of dams and reservoirs on malaria transmission in Ethiopia. Eradicating this ancient disease has long been a personal dream of mine. And we must remember that we have made incredible progress. Since 2000, malaria deaths have fallen by more than half, and we have succeeded in eliminating malaria from many parts of the world. WHO has now certified 40 countries as malaria-free, most recently China, which reported 30 million cases a year in the 1940s. But globally, progress has stalled at an unacceptably high level, with more than 200 million cases and 400,000 deaths every year. Most are children and pregnant women in Africa, and the COVID-19 pandemic has not helped. A WHO survey of 105 countries last year showed that 46% of them reported disruptions in malaria diagnosis and treatment. The full impact of the pandemic on malaria may not be known for some time, but it's clear we have a lot of work to do to realize our vision of a malaria-free world. For starters, we must make much better use of the tools we have today to prevent, detect, and treat malaria. But WHO Strategic Advisory Group on Malaria Eradication has been clear that we will need new tools to realize our vision of a malaria-free world, including new vaccines. For several decades, many major vaccine developers have gradually abandoned their attempts to develop malaria vaccines. But 6 years ago, the world's first malaria vaccine was approved. And 2 years ago, WHO and our partners began a pilot program to roll it in Ghana, Kenya, and Malawi. More than 700,000 children have now received the vaccine, and the initial results are very promising. WHO will be reviewing the data in the coming months to consider a recommendation for wider youth. At the same time, we know that In future, we will need more and better vaccines. For that reason, I'm delighted that BioNTech has committed to developing an mRNA malaria vaccine in Africa. 18 months ago, most people outside the life sciences would have never heard of mRNA. But the very high efficacy of 2 mRNA vaccines for COVID-19 have shown the world just how powerful this technology could be against many diseases, including malaria. The pandemic has also demonstrated the urgent need to invest in scaling up local production capacity, especially in Africa. So I'm hopeful that this project will be a meaningful and long-lasting contribution to ensuring our continent has a reliable supply of high-quality, locally produced vaccines. Of course, the key to malaria eradication is partnership. And we're all very grateful that the European Union, the European Investment Bank, and the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation have committed to investing in this very exciting project. My friends, mRNA technology is helping us to save lives from COVID-19, a disease that we have only known about for 19 months. Malaria has been with us for millennia. Eradicating it has been a long-held but unattainable dream. But new technologies like mRNA are making what was once a fantasy a possibility. We still have a very long road to travel, but this is an ambitious and purposeful stride down that road. WHO remains committed to working with you, our partners, until we reach our destination, a world free of malaria. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Dr. Tedros, and we wish you excellent continuation of your proceedings with the government of Kuwait. BioNTech actually plans to co-locate its African manufacturing capabilities with the technology hubs under development by WHO and in alignment with the African manufacturing strategy convened and promoted by the Africa CDC. All of those initiatives aim at expanding the capacity of low and middle income countries to manufacture contemporary vaccines end-to-end and to scale up production to increase global access to these critical tools to bring current and future pandemics under control. With these words, allow me to thank our interpreters who have been so helpful to translate this event into Arabic, Chinese, French, German, Hindi, Russian, Spanish, and Portuguese, and many, many thanks to the wonderful back office team at the World Health Organization, WHO in Geneva. It is now time to move over to our Q&A session. And again, may I ask all journalists who want to ask questions during this session to ensure that they have identified themselves with their full name and media you present in their Zoom screen name. If you have a question, please click the raise your hand button. I will then call out the name of the next journalist. If it is your turn, please then unmute your microphone, introduce your name and media, and ask your question. You also have the option to write down your question in the Q&A chat. Kindly note that as time is limited, we will take as many questions as possible. To allow the maximum number of journalists to be able to ask questions, please limit each intervention to one question. And also, with your permission, once Dr. John Nkengasong manages to reconnect from Tanzania, we would briefly interrupt the Q&A and give him the opportunity to address this distinguished audience. So, time to get into the media work. May I ask Bettina from ARD, from German National Radio, to speak up first, please? Bettina?
Yeah, now you should hear me.
We hear you very well. Thank you, Bettina.
Okay. Good afternoon. Thank you for that interesting conference. I'd like to know if you have already an idea of your African partners or countries where you're going to collaborate with.
I think it is fair to say, and I will hand this over to Dr. Sirk Pötting in a moment. The company is traveling the continent in the moment and talking to intellectuals, to public service leaders, to physicians, to really conduct a due diligence. And also what's important to know is that we will work together with the Africa CDC on WHO, but Sirk, the Chief Operating Officer of BioNTech, should explain this to you. Sirk.
Yeah, thank you very much, Holm. So the concept that we're envisioning to bring manufacturing to Africa is really to have modular production systems that we can co-locate, as we said before, with the WHO transfer hubs. So that means there is some infrastructure that we need. So what we are developing right now and started the development and prototyping process is this like drug substance and drug product containerized solution that we can build in Europe and then ship to African countries, and then connect to the host facilities. So in that sense, there needs to be some infrastructure on the ground that we need to connect to. For example, we would need aseptic fill and finish, where you can sterile fill and finish fill the vaccine into the glass vials or bags, for example. We need a workforce around, we need certain warehouse conditions where we can put the containers and stuff like that. So in that sense, we are touring, as Holm alluded to, we're touring the continent right now and see where these specifications are met. So and everybody basically on the call is helping us to navigate this and to find whether these prerequisites are either existent already, or whether the Gates Foundation, the WHO, and all the other partners are actually need to help to build up these infrastructure. For example, with workforce training, et cetera, So there are a couple of countries that come to mind that are also envisioned already as WHO transfer hubs, and these would of course be probably first choices, but we are not at the end of this process. So while we are developing our prototypes and building this containerized manufacturing, we are actually still discussing with the various countries and the organizations to find the best place.
Thank you very much, dear Sirk. I think the next is Jan from AFP. Jan, would you please speak up?
Hi, yes, can you hear me?
Yes, you can. If you are louder, it doesn't harm.
Yes, so I'm trying to talk as loud as possible. A question maybe to Dr. Sahin. What especially from the whole development of the COVID vaccine will you now be able to profit from while going to malaria? Is there anything in the technology, in the way that you work, in the way that mRNA is now more accepted, that makes it easier for you now to go forward? And a very short second one, the trial, will it be in Africa only, or will it be in other countries as well?
Yeah, thanks for the questions. So what we learned from the COVID-19 program is that multiple mRNA vaccines can be tested in parallel to identify the candidate which works best in early clinical trials. And this is one of the concepts that we would like to apply, because today it is not known which targets are the most suitable ones. Yeah, and we will connect target discovery, antigen discovery, with preclinical and clinical testing of multiple candidates. The second aspect is, of course, that we built up now a huge safety database. End of this year, there will be more than 1 billion people who have received our vaccine, a huge safety database, which makes the the technology and the mRNA itself more acceptable. What we have also developed and continuing to develop is mRNA to develop conditions that the mRNA can be transported at 2 to 8 degrees. And we are also working on conditions to transport messenger RNA vaccines at room temperature. So the combination of this logistical aspects, as well as the scientific aspects, as well as the mode of action of mRNA vaccines, having strong antibody titers, allowing to get strong T-cell responses, allowing to do repeated vaccinations and boosts, are excellent prerequisites to build on what is already known about malaria vaccines. And if we can combine this existing knowledge and existing competence with what we can deliver, we believe that the question is about the clinical trials. We will do the clinical trials most likely in multiple countries. Yeah, we will do for sure studies also in Germany, but also in Africa. If we go towards efficacy trials, we might include other regions where malaria is prevalent.
Thank you very much, Ugo. Maybe just to add, the EDCTP, headed by Dr. Michael Makanga, an agency of the European Union's member states and many other countries, which is the clinical trials network in Africa, will be at our support and will help that the quality management system that EDCTP has built with the support of DGRTD over the last years will come to play for a fast-forward clinical development of the malaria candidate BioNTech is considering. So next question would be Patricia Weiss from, if I recall correctly, Reuters. Patricia?
Yes, hello. Thank you for taking my question. Could you give us an overview on the investment sum of the project and who will exactly be the financial partners and how big is their part, their financial in the project? Many thanks.
Well, let me jump in here first and then more elaborate answers will come from more competent people than myself. Usually the development cost of a novel vaccine is well above €1 billion. How much BioNTech's upcoming malaria vaccine candidate will cost is absolutely unknown at this point in time. BioNTech will work on malaria, and the end-to-end African manufacturing is something the company will initially fund from internal resources. The company warmly welcomes the announcements from the European Commission, from EIB, to co-finance the product development once the vaccine candidate enters late-stage clinical development in Africa. So with that general sense, I don't know whether Özlem, Ugur, or Sirk would want to add to that. Ugur doesn't, Sirk does.
Yeah, I would say a couple of words. As Holm just explained, so I think in order to also do best what we can do best is actually develop and produce this vaccine. We said initially we will pre-fund all of these activities, or basically fund the activities. We'll start with the research ASAP, and we'll start with the production of prototypes, building manufacturing units for Africa, etc., so that we can really gain speed on this effort. And I think, and then when it comes to more tangible, large-scale trials, and when it comes to more than one country that needs to be equipped with the equipment and so on, then we can turn to our partners and discuss how we best fund this. So initially, it's really we are very grateful that we have the partners standing by to wait how this all develops, and if we are getting somewhere and we see results and all of this is working and there's a very large scale investment, then we can turn to the partners. So right now we want to start as quickly as possible and self-fund this. On the other hand, I think there's also funding on the side, for example, by the Gates Foundation, by the EIB, by the German government, and so on, to enable the infrastructure where we would like to put our manufacturing units. As I mentioned before, there will be workforce development, there will be regulatory training and regulatory establishment. There will be fill and finish investments at the sites, and all of this will pre-done by the partners. And with that, I go back to home and maybe some other comments.
Thank you very much, dear Sirk. Let me just iterate on that. This is a commitment we rarely ever see, and it shows one more time that BioNTech is a very different company. BioNTech is, I think, the first vaccine developing company during the last 3 decades entering this field of malaria and trying to develop a vaccine at the time when most other major developers have closed down on their efforts on this disease. And getting started without really asking for somebody else to do something, but to say we can do by ourselves is an investment that can't be valued big enough. And I think all of us are here to applaud the vision of the company and its founders and the excellent team in Mainz, München and beyond for tackling this challenge, which is indeed very timely, an Olympic one. Let's move on to Mexico. Raul, the stage is yours. Please unmute yourself.
Fine. Yeah. Hello.
Hello. So we are preparing a television program for TV UNAM, and therefore we would be interested in the possibility of implementing similar programs for Latin America. And we would like to know the point of view of politicians and as well the point of view of scientifics.
So let's move this over to Özlem and Ugur first and then open the floor.
I can take this. In principle, both scientifically as well as technologically, the approach of technology transfer and building clinical development programs and also supply solutions in different parts of the world for diseases which are not sufficiently addressed yet. This is something which can be replicated, and it's in our interest to replicate it also in other regions and other infectious diseases. We think that we will learn a lot, in particular in cooperation with all the experts, which have been already introduced in this call, how to solve what is in principle a challenge, and how to then also scale up to different diseases and also to different regions. So this is a plan which will be rolled out once we have had a first success with malaria.
Thank you very much, Özlem. Can I ask Soumya, the Chief Scientist of the World Health Organization, to also comment on this one, Dr. Soumya?
Thank you very much, Home, and congratulations to all involved in today's announcement. I agree that it's a very momentous occasion because we are bringing the latest in science and cutting-edge technology to address one of the oldest diseases of humankind and one that still kills far too many people every year. There is another infectious disease, tuberculosis, which could also benefit from the latest technology, and I'm very happy that the scientists in BioNTech are also interested in developing vaccines for TB. To come to the question on Latin America, indeed, the WHO would like to see this technology being diffused into those parts of the world which have inadequate capacity for vaccine production, but also can benefit from this new technology to address the local health needs of the region. And we're looking at a concept of regional health security, because that's one of the lessons from the pandemic, has been that it would have been easier to handle, particularly with health products like vaccines and diagnostics, if the manufacturing production was more evenly spaced out around the world. It would have been much easier to have also equitable distribution and access to these products. So we're very much hoping that the concept of the WHO technology transfer hubs that we've announced, first with mRNA, but we're going to move on to other technologies like the subunit proteins and the adenoviral vectors, that we would see not only in Africa, but also in Latin America, potentially in other regions which currently have inadequate production capacity, that we will be able to see these hubs actually serve as training sites for countries to receive the technology, to learn and to train their workforce. Because here again, we're talking about a new technology and we don't have too many people in countries who are experts in the manufacturing of mRNA, and it's complex. So we need a whole dedicated program on workforce development, which we will work with BioNTech and other partners over the coming months to take forward. And so I think this type of private-public partnership with the WHO playing a coordinating and a facilitating role can really be a game changer, not just for the immediate, for COVID vaccines, for the malaria vaccine, but also the mRNA technology, I think, offers a huge potential. As Professor Sahin and Tureki have shown, their whole career and life and BioNTech has been spent on trying to develop cancer medicines. And we are also aware that biologics and monoclonal antibodies will play a big role in the future in the treatment of diseases. So for all of these reasons, I think this is a very good first step, but obviously needs to be followed up with further actions to make this technology available to other regions and establish those hubs, including Latin America as a priority region for the WHO. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Soumya. I know this is a topic Philip would want to comment on. So Philip Wilkoff from the Gates Foundation, please unmute yourself.
Greetings, and thanks so much to all the participants, and tremendous thanks to Drs. Aslam and Ugur for your leadership and vision. I think when we look at the tremendous burden that malaria causes around the world, there is a fundamental new opportunity here. We know that the existing tools we have against malaria can save many lives, but they're not enough to eradicate. That's why at the Gates Foundation, we've been exploring and investing in a range of potential approaches. But a second generation vaccine, one that has high efficacy, long duration, and can work across in all ages, it would be a game changer. And this is the best chance that we have had to actually get to that tool. I think one of the important things about malaria is how different it is from location to location, and a different mix of tools may be needed in different places. And so I think that's why the concepts that Dr. Soumya has just been discussing are so important, because we want to make sure that different countries have the opportunity and different regions have the opportunity to have the appropriate mix of tools, including something transformational like such a second generation vaccine, to be able to interrupt transmission regardless of the local context, regardless of the transmission intensity. So I welcome this announcement, and I think it will be truly transformational in this fight against malaria and averting the tremendous burden it has. Over.
Thank you very much, Philip, to Seattle. I have seen Dr. Hoyer raising his hand and nodding when Soumya was speaking beforehand. So Dr. Hoyer, do you want to add to the point on the global expansion of this topic beyond Africa?
Well, of course, we are ready to consider also being active in other parts of the world. And indeed, Latin America is a region that needs to get our attention maybe a little bit more than so far. But I was nodding when I heard Dr. Samdinatan and Dr. Sain before saying that, well, at least that's the way I interpreted, we should not underestimate the complexity of vaccine productions. Some people believe you just send a couple of bottles of fluids, liquid somewhere, and then pull them together, and then you have a vaccine. It's a very, very demanding process. So the skills dimension is key in this context, and this also requires investment. We are presently supporting vaccine acquisition and vaccination infrastructure, cold chain and vaccination centers, also in Latin America, and we are in close coordination with our partners at the Inter-American Development Bank, and I think indeed there is more that can be expected.
Thank you very much, Dr. Heuer. There has been a question that was asked before on the regional strategy that the Africa Union and the Africa CDC have been developing. Dr. Nises, do you want to add a few comments on the regional strategy aspect of our important matter?
No, thanks so much, really congratulations. So as Africa CDC, Africa Union, we really welcome effort by BioNTech to develop this mRNA malaria vaccine, and also support really our initiative to start manufacturing some of the vaccine on the continent to meet our aspirations. So it's grateful for really the kind of foundation for initiating this, what we call Eradicate Malaria Initiative. I think I won't repeat what Dr. Sumia did mention. This is really going to be a game changer in addition to other infectious diseases of relevance on the continent that include TB, malaria, and other diseases that definitely we can leverage on this technology to be able to address them. I mean, it's clear that we know that malaria kills more than 400,000 people a year, and mostly infants in sub-Saharan Africa. That's data, that's the evidence, and that's actually substantiate the need of this technology, as well as really encouraging or commending the effort that you're putting towards that. And also with the disruptions of the treatment due to COVID-19, these numbers are likely to increase. So I think that's really, we appreciate that effort. So the African Union, Africa CDC, through the Partnership for Africa Vaccine Manufacturing Initiative, really take this as really a laudable effort. And moving towards really, if we start even just with fill and finish, that's already a tremendous effort that will take us to the next steps. So I think from this end, really, we appreciate that effort, and we're fully supportive, and also leveraging on the current technology with the research hubs that has been currently been set across the 5 regions in collaboration with WHO and other partners, and then that transfer of technology and will go a long way in addressing some of these key public health questions through the mRNA technology and then Eradicate Malaria Program Initiative. Thank you, and over to you all.
Thanks a lot, Dr. Nises. Dr. Nises has asked us to accept that we keep his camera off in order to improve the sound quality, since the internet connection is not very well where he is. So he has asked us for apologies on that. Pedro, this is an announcement on malaria that possibly you haven't had during your career. And also that is something you have been together with the team working on making possible for quite some time. Dr. Pedro Alonso is the director of the Global Malaria Program at WHO. Pedro, do you want to share a few remarks?
Sure, Holm. Thanks very much.
The remarks are first to acknowledge and thank Dr. Sahin and Tureki for their leadership and boldness and good science and prioritizing one of the oldest scourge of mankind. Some people say the disease that has killed more humans in history, malaria, a disease that has a really important equity dimension. It affects poor populations. It entraps entire populations and countries in this vicious cycle of disease and poverty. And for a highly successful set of scientists and a company to now put their focus on bringing their science, their technology, their success, the funding, to take on malaria is a dream come true. It's, as one of my colleagues in Geneva was saying, what we're hearing today is the announcement of the moonshot. And also the fact that they want to do this in combination or in partnership with critical players. Number one, the countries, the affected countries themselves. The number two, key partners like the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation, the European Investment Bank, of course, WHO and others. It truly is unprecedented. I've devoted more than 35 years of my professional life to the work on malaria. And I dare say that this is one of the most exciting times. Also, the amount of time I've spent on malaria tells me that we have to be cautious. The work has just begun. Malaria is a very complex parasite, as Ugur was saying earlier on. There are many things we still don't understand about immunity induced by this parasite. It's one of the most complex organisms, communicable disease organisms that we can think of. And therefore, it won't be necessarily an easy path. But what we're hearing today is the commitment of the company, of the science, of the partners, of the political entities, and that's as good as it could possibly get. I'm an optimist, and I'm sure that in a few years' time we'll look back at this date and acknowledge that it was an extraordinarily important announcement that would perhaps, hopefully, produce a highly efficacious malaria vaccine that works for a good number of years, and that, as Director General Dr. Tedros said, could potentially enable or be a key component for a future eradication effort and our joint vision of a malaria-free world. So a big thanks on behalf of all of us.
Thank you very much, dear Pedro. Chidi in Brazzaville, any closing remark from WHO AFRO?
Okay, thank you, Home. And dear colleagues and partners, no, actually very brief closing remarks, just to appreciate the determination and the commitment that's been expressed today by all those who are involved in taking this huge opportunity that BioNTech is offering in this technology for malaria in Africa. And to express on behalf of my colleagues here in the region and on behalf of the people in Africa, our deep appreciation and our absolute determination ourselves to join in this work. It's going to be truly transformative. As somebody who moved 12 years ago from Southern Africa to the Congo, I've suffered several bouts of malaria personally. And of course, I've developed, I think, my own immunity. But I see every day around me in the Congo, colleagues, other people that we meet here. And the impact on people's lives is very visible in a very obvious way, starting from my colleagues, the people who help me in the house, and the impact on everybody's economy, ability to work, and of course the tragic occasion when deaths occur. It's just something that you cannot forget. And I'd like to thank all the partners in this initiative and say we will be with you and with our member states every step of the way in terms of the role that WHO in the African region, working with our colleagues, Sumia, Tedros, and others in our headquarters will do to take this forward. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, dear Chidi. So it is now time to move back to Özlem and Ugur to congratulate them very personally and their wonderful team at large, and to ask you for a few closing remarks.
Yes, I can start maybe, Ugur, if you allow. So I would like to use this opportunity on behalf of BioNTech and express our gratitude for all those who are involved in this initiative and will, together with us and others, enable that we all can contribute to eradication of malaria. And we think that this is not only the beginning of addressing malaria as a threat, in particular in low-income countries, but also the beginning of forming and reinventing public-private partnerships and how they are driven, which we think we can together also expand to other regions of the world and other diseases.
Yeah, I would also like to thank Holm and everyone here in this meeting, yeah, for this fantastic program and support. What really motivates me, it is not about organizations working here together. It's about people who are working on this challenge for decades, like Petro. And we had in the last weeks several meetings with each other, and these were exciting meetings. It made clear how much knowledge is available, yeah? And it provided us a lot of encouragement that the problem can be scientifically solved, and if we can solve the problem with innovation and science, everything else will fall in place. And I'm really, really optimistic as Petro. We have to be optimistic because this is a huge challenge, yeah? And that we can make a difference. So thank you so much for allowing us to work with you.
So thank you very much, dear Ugur, dear Özlem. This is our privilege to working with you, and we will all try to give you the best possible support. So for those who came in later, let me quickly summarize. BioNTech says we will develop a highly efficient vaccine to fight malaria, and we will manufacture it end-to-end in Africa. The World Health Organization, Africa Union, and CDC applaud and say this is actually well aligned within our strategies. The European Union, EIB, and the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation stand ready to support. And with all of this and the outlook to potentially starting a malaria-free world today, I'd like to thank all the distinguished panelists, all the speakers, to all of you, and we wish you a wonderful remaining of this Monday and an excellent rest of this week. Thank you very much. Best greetings from all of us at CANUP to the rest of the world. Be safe, get vaccinated, and if you can, take the BioNTech vaccine.